We're going to replace the whole AC system. I'll explain it to you. I'll explain why, and well, I think why. Let's get to replacing this AC system and explaining what went wrong. So many years ago when I bought this car, it was R12 refrigerant. And against my better judgment, because it never goes well, I used a conversion kit from R12 to R134A. It's got an oil converter stabilizer that you put in that will stabilize the mineral oil when you add PAG oil, so the two intermixing don't create black tar that will clog your orifice tube. And it ran good for a number of years. The only problems I was having were the standard A6 compressor. The nose seal starts to leak on them, and I had a couple bad compressors that were bad right out of the gate. But through it all, the AC system worked when the compressor would work properly and when it was charged and, you know, not leaking stuff out of the shaft seal. Well, I finally bit the bullet, and for a lot of money I converted to the all-aluminum version of the A6 compressor, which is supposed to be newer, better, and much more gooder. Well, as soon as I did that, it slagged up the orifice tube with black gunk. Now, I very carefully checked the specs on this, as I always do before I buy something for an AC system. And the specs were that it was charged with PAG oil properly, like this system is set up to run. Not only charged with PAG oil, but the reservoir was filled with PAG oil, as is standard. You don't want to use different oils there either, but the specs clearly said PAG oil. And it was working with the old compressor. So I put this compressor on, vacuumed it down, put in the charge and all the necessary oils and everything according to the instructions, which is rare. I actually followed the exact instructions on this, and immediately it slagged up the orifice tube with black gunk. And I do have a picture of the orifice tube, which I have since thrown away, but I have a picture of that I'll show to you. Anyway, there's little bits of metal in there too, which tiny bits of metal, maybe probably invisible in the pictures. So either I got a bad compressor or they put the wrong oil in it or something. I don't know. I haven't used mineral oil on a system for years and years and years. And like I said, I very carefully checked the specs anyway. So once that happens, the only proper way to do it, and keep a new compressor warranty, which I probably have to get a new compressor now, is to basically replace or flush everything. And you have to have evidence and or receipts of that. Well, I bought new parts because they're readily available, except for one part, which is this line here that you can't find anywhere. But I'm thinking maybe we can fabricate a line for that. I'm not sure yet. Everything else is going to get replaced. I want to analyze this compressor and basically pour the oil out first, see what the oil looks like, and see if I can figure anything out from the oil. I'll pour the oil out of whatever oil is in the body of the compressor and then whatever oil is in the reservoir. And I'll see, I removed the tags, but when they ship these, they put a pink tag over here that tells you what it's charged with, the type and quantity of the oil, and then they put a tag on the back that tells you what it's charged with, type and quantity. So I'm curious to see what we get out of there. The only other thing I can think of that this black gook could come from is, you know, if my hoses are finally disintegrating from years and years, because these are like original hoses. But this section here that goes into the compressor, I have a new section for that. New receiver dryer, new evaporator core, all of that stuff. This line here, the only main problem with it is it has the high side port in it. So we're going to see what we can do with that. I think we're going to have to fabricate a line for that, but again, like I said, I'm really not sure what that's going to involve. This is the high pressure liquid line, so you know, that's not something you want to try to mess around with, but we're going to be messing around with it. There's not a lot of options for this, guys, so to have one made is expensive, so I don't know. We're gonna have to explore our options there. But anyway, first let's just get into this and replace the stuff we can, which is not easy but fairly straightforward. I'll just run through it and show you any hard parts or anything that are involved with it, and keeping in mind that other than the conversion to R134A, this is all basically the factory arrangement of air conditioning parts. All right, enough talking. Let's get to work. So I pulled out the system charge. The first thing I'm going to do is get this compressor off of here. And I'm going to get it sealed. Well, I'm going to try to get it sealed up temporarily. You want to be very careful because any contamination at all in any part is never a good thing. So in this system, the orifice tube is in here. Let's take a look at that. I already replaced this once, and immediately it stopped functioning after I fired it up, which makes me think that whatever caused the Black Death is still in there. It's not residual from something old. This evaporator and everything was brand new a few years ago. It's a real shame that I'm going to be replacing it again. Oh, we're not plugged up. What? Why are you? Well, we are. See, this one is already starting. Chunks of metal, more chunks of metal. You can see the metal right there on my finger, maybe if you look. I feel like this brand new compressor, this definitely wasn't in here before. I feel like this brand new compressor is completely fragged. Oh boy. The problem with any of these compressors is they won't take it back or give you a warranty unless you show that you replaced or flushed the rest of the system, which is understandable because I wouldn't want to give somebody a warranty either when they were doing the work if I wasn't sure that they did a good job and didn't have proof for it. That is the way of the world, but unfortunately sometimes things happen and people do things completely the right way and things fail. I trust myself. I don't trust other people. Well, to be fair, I don't even trust myself. I'm very untrusting of my own work. I verify and verify and verify repeatedly. In this case, probably because the evaporator is on the other side of that orifice tube, which also has a screen on it to filter out the metal, which obviously it does because it caught the metal. It may be okay, but I'm not willing to risk that. Well, I guess let's keep going along here and taking parts off. Basically just taking hoses and connectors off. So, you know, all these connectors, line connectors here, and this is a low pressure switch I added as a backup for the system because it doesn't have its original R12 system. It has some of it. The temperature probe is still active on the evaporator, so if the evaporator freezes, it'll shut it off. But I added some extra safety features to protect the compressor in the event of all the fluid or all the gas leaking out. So yeah, let's do that. Yeah, so I poured out, I'm getting metal fragments out of the high pressure line. Goodness, there's a lot of metal in here. So the first thing you have to do, besides disconnecting all your electrical, and you don't have to do this first, but I did, take off this screen here. It's held by a couple screws. One, your wiper washer sprayer, and then one that's buried up here under the wiper arm. You kind of got to lift the wiper arm to get to it. And once that is off, then you can get to the top lid of this box. You can get to these screws back along here. There's 4 there, and then there's little screws along the edge of the box, and then you can take that lid off. to get to the evaporator, so let's do that. Don't do what I did. I just messed up majorly again. Every time I forget how to do this and I don't look it up. Take off that metal strip that runs across under your windshield wipers first. Then you can get more height when you lift this off. Yeah, you can take it off with that strip on, but don't try it unless you've done it, and I haven't. This box was broken before from the first time it disintegrated on me. Probably because I did it wrong. I'll admit my mistakes, but it cracked in the same places, so you can see the glue from before. So I'm gonna reassemble it. Quite frankly, I'm surprised it survived as long as it did with my little repair. So that means my repair worked well. That's a good thing. Gonna clean this box out, vacuum it out, check the heater core, which is still all original, and we'll vacuum out back in there. All right. The only thing remaining on here then is the condenser. I'm gonna clean this up, glue it back together, and get that setting before I pull the condenser. Hey, you like my new shop vac? Bet my significant other doesn't. Shop vac is down. Okay, where are we at? Got this box cleaned up. Gonna put the core in, get this back together, and replace the condenser, which we may have to pull the radiator. I don't know if I can get enough room just shoving it forward, but I'm gonna try. Depends how much I can bend this lower radiator hose, and you know, these transmission lines. Probably can't. I don't know. We got to get down there to get the fasteners, so we'll take a look at that. And yeah, well, I got to pull this grill off to get to the fan I put on, condenser fan. All right, let's keep ripping into this here. So to take the condenser out, there's two. You can take the top radiator shroud off. If you drill out the staples like I did there, you can kind of tilt the radiator forward, and there's two screws and clamps that hold it in here. Clamps look like this. These nice rubber pieces, and then it'll lift out of the bottom sections, rubber sections there. So you take both of these out, and we'll try to snake it up out of here. I think I can. Well, I gotta take that fan, the added fan I put on off the front, but we'll do that. So, as usual, I've received the wrong things. This condenser is a little different, but it'll work. It's thinner, it's smaller. But this hose is completely different from that one. And you wouldn't think those little bends would make a big difference, but they do. There's not near enough length by the time you get everything all done and said. I don't know if it'll work or not. I mean, the problem is because it's not gonna work. I think this is for probably the R4 compressor, which is the back of the compressor is closer to the front of the car, so the lines need to be shorter. I don't know. Well, they did indeed send me the hose, suction hose for the R4 compressor, which is not going to work. It's just too short. Can't make it work. Not going to make it work. So while I'm waiting for that, fabricate up a liquid line. Now, you can use barrier hose and hose clamps. You got to use all the right stuff though. It has to be rated barrier hose, which this is. Obviously everything has to be the right size. You can get fittings, various sizes and thread sizes. You just got to match up what you have. And we have to add a high side port in the liquid line because the high side port was in this line before. They had put it way up in here and hard to get to place. We're not going to do that. We're going to put it in an easy to get to place over here. And then we're going to use, I don't have the right size. I have to order. I thought maybe I could bend this into a right angle, but it's so weak that it just broke as soon as I tried to bend it. This is the right thread size and line size. We have to get that in a right angle, and then we can finish our high pressure line, and not forgetting to put an orifice tube in there. Now, there's obviously no known proper oil amount for this system because it's R12 converted to R134A. Everything is different. The condenser is a newer one that's now apparently smaller and a different size and all that. Anyway, the way I've been doing this on this car is I've been using about 7 to 8 ounces of oil total for the system. So about 1.5 in the condenser, 1.5 in the evap, 2 ounces in the accumulator, and then about 3 in the compressor. And that's usually about right because they ship about 3 in the compressor, so when I do that it works out. So that's the way I'm gonna fill it with oil. I've got about 1.5 ounces in there. I'm gonna put 1.5 ounces in the evap core, and then so on and so forth. So I think this will work pretty good. This is how the other hose was routed. It was just metal line up through here. So this right angle worked pretty good. That'll be solid. Won't hit anything. I don't like it's against the radiator hose, but not much I can do about that. I can maybe tweak it a little bit, but it'll be okay. And of course we're going to run over here. We're going to put the high side port in, split it again, and run it into the evap core. All right, brand new compressor. I don't know. Let's open this together and do an evaluation on it and see what we have. I'm going to do a more in-depth evaluation than I normally do because I don't trust them anymore after the last one. I did the autopsy, and if you want to watch that, like I said before, I'll leave a link down in the description. But it had a bad, very worn swash plate, metal everywhere. The bearings on the pistons were digging into the swash plate and filling the system with just mounds of metal. And I didn't run it near long enough to do that, and was very careful not to slug it, as I always am. I didn't even put a liquid charge in it when I charged it. I put a complete 100% vapor charge in it, and which takes longer, is a pain in the butt, but it's always safer. Of course, I checked the oil and everything. There's no way it was slugged with oil. Anyway, my working theory is that somebody slugged it or something and then lied and returned it, and instead of checking it out, they just repackaged it and sent it out again, which I would expect better from some of these manufacturers when you pay this much money, but that's the way it is. All right, let's see what we have here. Oh, this has a yellow tag, not a pink tag. Okay, so this is the one. So this, if it has a pink tag, it's pre-filled. Okay, so you see these tags. PAG 46, which is what I've been using in my system because of this. A6 models, reduce recommended oil charge by 3 ounces. So this compressor actually holds less oil, is what they're saying. So, you know, it wouldn't have a lot of oil in it from the factory. So they're saying 3 ounces less than a standard A6 model. I'll have to check out what the charge is for that, but after I get done checking it out. So this compressor may contain shipping oil, drain shipping oil, and add manufacturer's recommended oil type and amount through drain bolt or suction port. So we're going to add, they're in this case they're not saying drain bolt and suction port. Some of these do it separately. Some say add this much to the reservoir and this much to the suction port, and some say just add it all through the reservoir. So this one they're saying just add a total combined with both. So we will drain that oil out and check it, but let's take this out and see if it has a nitrogen charge in it. That'll mean if it does have a nitrogen charge, that means it's never been opened from the factory. If it doesn't, I'm not sure if they're supposed to have a nitrogen charge in it or not. So if it doesn't have a nitrogen charge, it won't tell us much because I don't know if it's supposed to. If it does have a nitrogen charge, then 100% it's never been opened by anybody else since the manufacturing line. Let's open it up and see if it's under pressure. Use the proper size wrench. Nope. That wasn't that tight. Let's see what we have here. Oh, yes, okay. Haha. The last one did not do that, which makes me think that it had been opened. See, there's a little bit of clear shipping oil in there. That's fine. We'll get out as much of that as we can. Drain. I will set it upright and get it draining. Yeah, that makes me think even more that the last one had been opened by someone else. Alright, I'll set it upright and that will drain as much oil out as we can. And I will go up and look. I will look for the recommended oil charge. Also, we're going to drain the reservoir also, one at a time. I don't know, doing it this way, it might drain it out of the reservoir as well, but let's just let it sit here till we get a lot of oil out of it. This is a good sign. This is good. I like this one. Feeling a lot better about this compressor than the other one. In retrospect, I probably should have just sent the other one back. Okay, that's good. I feel the bearings spinning, but not the compressor. We're going to have to take off this plate so that we can spin the compressor head. You want to spin it to both circulate oil and get as much of the old oil out as possible, because if there's any oil in the cylinders, you don't want to start it that way and slug it. So you want to make sure it turns freely before you ever fire it up. Okay, now we can see the actual compressor. Turn it there to try to work any oil out of it. Might be in there, which won't really do much, but makes me feel better. All right, let that sit. I also got the correct hose, discharge and suction hose for the compressor. What's different? I hope it's the correct one. So we can hook those up. I'm still waiting for my right angle fitting, which is supposed to be here today. I'm going to put the receiver dryer on last because I want that to be exposed to air as short a time as possible before I hook a vacuum up and vac it down. So I'll have everything ready to go when I hook that up. It's the only critical one because of the desiccant pack inside. You want it exposed to moisture as little as possible so it can remove that moisture from the system, not from the air that it has an infinite amount of. Alright, this one appears to be the correct length. And when that's all hooked up, I'll be about right. I don't remember how this is routed, if this is routed under the brake lines or between them. Same with this. I don't remember if it goes like under this bracket. You know, I should have checked that out. I don't know. We are going to have to get the compressor mounted before I can determine that. So if you look at the instructions that comes with the compressor, well, nowhere on here do they have a Frigidaire A6. Probably because they use R12 and they're going to have mineral oil to start with, and these aren't really made for conversions right off the bat. But no Frigidaire compressors on here, not for any vehicle, not even under John Deere or any tractor manufacturers. It's interesting. So when you use R12 oil, the system holds roughly about 10 to 11 ounces. That's the whole system. And I had said 8 earlier, but when you're using this, that's because I think it says what, reduce recommended oil charge by 3 ounces. This uses less oil, this compressor type. And if you look at the compressor autopsy, I was always curious what was different between these and the Frigidaire steel A6. And these don't have an oil pump that draws from the sump. I guess it just, as the rotating assembly spins through the oil, it just picks it up, and, you know, like it would with a small engine without an oil pump, basically, or, you know, a standard compressor. I'm surprised they even bothered to put the sump in there, frankly. So I guess that's the main difference between these, other than being aluminum and steel. That's a big difference between these aluminum compressors, and I'm a little bit annoyed by that, because I was always told that these were the same thing, basically just aluminum. That's always been one of the big selling points of the A6 compressor, is that it has that separate oil reservoir that doesn't generally mix with the rest of the system, and it, you know, it pumps it up through the system. So there's always some in the sump. It's not always suspended in the refrigerant. And I guess to a certain degree this is always supposed to have some in the sump. So we're going to make sure we start with some in the sump, even though it doesn't specifically say that in the directions. So if you're ever curious what the main difference between these aluminum A6 versions and the steel A6 version, well, that's the difference. So this has been draining a while, so I've drained the rear and I'm draining the sump. Haven't got much out of the sump, so I guess it all went right out the back because it's interconnected. So glad they don't put dye in the shipping oil. That's another thing with that other compressor. The other compressor had dye in the oil. I don't think the factory does that. I think that would have to be the customer putting in the dyed oil. Already lost my money on that. Rock Auto did nothing to help me out with that, and they pretty much told me to pound sand, which is kind of annoying, but that's the way it goes with big companies. So, oil quantity. So this whole thing, I'm going with the working data that this thing, total system wise, will take 8 ounces of oil. That's the number I'm going with, using the between 10 and 11 starting point. Add a little bit more oil to be safe, just because. Take away the 3 ounces they're saying, so you get 8. And now that's total system. So I think if I go with my original, what I did last time, put 3 ounces in the compressor, 1.5 in the evap, 1.5 in the condenser, and 2 in the receiver dryer, I think we'll be fine. So that should do it. I can't find any quantities about what these aluminum A6 compressors are supposed to take. So I think we're following all the directions the best I know how there. And it is PAG 46, which is what I've been using, and that's what I'm going to charge it with again. If you're doing a conversion on the steel Frigidaire version, I think generally they recommend a heavier weight oil. So you would use like PAG 150, 100 at the minimum maybe. Just like a standard oil, that number is the weight. Alright, so compressor. Do that so I can keep track of it as I go. Alright, buyer beware if you're doing one of these cars. I'm sure it applies to 78 and 79 with the A6 compressor. After that they went to the R4, I think, on most of them. Could be wrong. But the hoses that you can buy are different. So you can see the old hose versus the new hose. This has to go up over the bracket, and this has to go, well, it has to clear the brake booster. Right now it just hits right against the brake booster, so I don't know. I don't think that'll work, but it needs to come down more, or go under, looks like that one. Goodness, I don't know. Let's see what we can do. to show you how awful this fitment is. I can get fairly close, but it needs to rotate, and I can't go either way. I can't go this way because it'll hit the brake booster, and also I can't go that way because it hits the bracket. If I go under the bracket, it'll be down too far, and then this one won't even be close. This is very stiff tube, which is good, but I can't easily bend it. I'm afraid if I tweak it too hard, it's gonna, you know, just snap. I'm not sure what to do here. Okay, where are we at here? Well, after much fighting, I just barely tweaked this just a little bit. I tweaked this one up, and I kind of tweaked this one down. You don't want to twist it too far because it wants to bend here at the joints, and I don't want any leaks. Just a little bit to get it to fit with an air gap here. I don't know if that air gap is going to stay once the engine vibrates a little bit, but that pipe is pretty tough, so it can take a little beating before anything happens to it. Worst case scenario, I'll figure out the right way. So our compressor is ready to go. I'm not going to hook it up until I get everything circulated, and you know, once that happens, but there's a lot to do before that. So I've got the right hose on here for the receiver dryer. I was watching a video this morning waiting for things to dry off, and I had to laugh a little bit because a guy was doing an R134A conversion to R12 on an old C10, and well, I chuckled a little bit because he wasn't calling things quite the right names, and well, he had the same compressor I did, and he didn't even replace all the lines, didn't replace the evaporator, and just kind of threw it together, and getting 40-degree air out of the vents with no leaks. And I was just chuckling because some guys have all the luck. I can't even replace everything and get the perfect charge in it and do everything right and get that kind of performance out of a converted R12 system. So I don't know. Just some guys have all the luck. Anyways, what I'm saying, one thing you got to note when they send you these evap cores, they're never bent right. They always put these two in line with each other. And you can't, unless you're going to tilt your receiver dryer sideways, you can't do it. It won't fit. So this one needs bent a little bit, or this one needs bent. Well, we can't go much further that way or that way. So this one is going to kind of go, this is going to be down here like this, in an upright position. So this one's kind of got to go, I'd like to take it, this has to be accessible, so something like that. All right, so we got to fill this with oil. What I'm going to do is tighten this down in the upright position here and fill it with oil this way. And then probably by the time we're ready to go, that oil will have drained throughout. But I'm not going to put a liquid charge in this. I'm going to do a total 100% vapor charge like I usually do. It takes a while to get it right, but that's what we're going to do. And that will give it more time to equalize and mix with the oil and everything as it moves, as it fills the system. So I'm not just going to slam a liquid charge in there. I don't like doing that under any circumstances. I've seen people do that and get away with it, but I don't like doing it myself. So we're going to fill this with oil, hook that hose up, and then put our receiver dryer on, and then immediately I'm getting ready to vacuum down here, because I want that thing exposed to air as little as possible. I really, really, really want this thing to work. I put so much money and time into this, and I had so much bad luck. So let's see if we can do this. All right, so this should have a nitrogen charge in it as well, just like the compressor. And if this doesn't have a nitrogen charge in it, then you need to take it back. So let's see whether we are waiting again for another order or not. Really gonna launch across the, oh, I heard a hiss. Okay, we are pressurized. Okay, let's go put this on. we're down to 30 inches of mercury. I'll be vacuuming this down for a good long while. So it's all about how long there it takes to put an accumulator on. And whenever you get a compressor, they won't warranty it. One of the things they always for certain won't warranty it unless you replace the accumulator dryer, or the receiver dryer is what I mean. Accumulator would be different. That would be on the liquid part of the line. But they're saying, oh, you're opening the system, you need to replace that. Well, the main reason they do that is because they just want to, and they want another excuse to maybe not warranty it. And they will also want you to spend more money. It probably takes longer to put one of those on than it does to replace a compressor when you have everything all ready to go. I mean, you know, I can have the old compressor off and the new one hooked up to the line in probably less than a minute. Receiver dryer takes a good deal longer than that because there's multiple connections and you have to get things right and fill it with oil, and by the time you get done with that, you've got more air exposure than you would have just pulling the compressor off. So I think that whole thing is ridiculous. Anyway, we're going to be vacuuming this down for a while, and then we'll shut it down and just check it for leaks or leak down freight. Hopefully there's none. Knowing my luck and the way this project is going, there's probably something else wrong here. Well, it's holding pretty good here. Just a hair over 30 inches of mercury, if my gauges are accurate. Actually, I think this gauge set is pretty accurate, even if it is a little beat up. Alright, gonna vacuum her down a little bit for extra good measure, and then we'll start filling it with a charge. So it's about 90 degrees ambient. We're at about 38 and 260, roughly. So, I mean, I think the spec for 90 degrees ambient is like between 45 and 55 and between 250 and 275. So we're getting down towards 60. Vent temp, that's from the side vent. Center vent's probably even colder because closer to the core, but yeah. I don't know, I might add a little bit more, get it up to spec. See if we can get it even colder. I never go to the work to calculate the charge in this thing. There's a formula to convert the R12 charge size to R134A, but this doesn't have it written on. I have to look it up and do some math. I think I've tried it in the past. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of difference. They're up above 275, 280. Now we're up above 40 on the low side. This is sitting still. If I had my temp gun, I could calculate the superheat and subcooling, but yeah, we're getting down towards 60. That's pretty good. If we were moving, we'd probably be even better. That's pretty good for a 90-degree day in an old car like this. I could probably get it bang on if I calculated the charge, but like I said, it never seems to work with this thing when you put an exact charge in it. And it's going to be different with the newer size compressor, and you know, it's just easier to charge by temps and pressures. Usually I go by temps too, but my temp gun is broken, bit the dust. We're getting condensation, and that's good on the outline too. Excellent. Getting out on the outline, that means we're not overpowering the core, running it at full fan speed, so that is excellent. Now we're heading down towards 60. Yeah, I could very easily take that. Okay, now one more test is to give it a throttle up and see if the pressures don't spike too high. Getting up towards 400 when I throttle it up. I don't know. It does have a pressure release pop-off valve on the back, I think, so it will protect it to a certain degree. So cruising around, I get 60-degree air, which is about what I expected. The condenser fan really helps at idle, helps a good bit. You know, it used to rise about 10-20 degrees at idle, but now it only rises a few degrees. But yeah, cruising around, I can get it to 60 on a 90-degree day in here, so that's good. I wish it was lower. I see these guys doing these systems and they're getting 40-degree air out of them, but I have never been able to get 40-degree air out of this system. I don't know if it's an airflow limitation over the core or what. All the flapper valves and everything are open correctly. I did double check that. So the heater core shut off because I got a heater core switch. I don't know. Well, now we're below 60, so that's good. We're down at about 58. Well, okay, I mean, that's quite acceptable for a nice 90-degree day. You can be cruising around and have some nice cold air, so that's nice for a classic car. So I'm gonna call this one probably complete, and I just got lost. I don't know where I am. It's typical for me, but all right. Well, this is good. This is quite acceptable. Oh, it's still going down a little bit. This is fantastic. Is this my road? What road is this? Oh, no, I'm not lost anymore. All right, let's head back to the barn, and I think if I kept cruising a little bit more even, I could get some even colder air, but this is very good. I like this. This is tremendously good. And that's running at full fan speed. I'm not even cheating and pulling the fan speed back. It's extracting maximum air from the core. Oh, it's still going down a bit. We're going to be down to 50 pretty soon at the rate it's going. Well, this is tremendously good. I'm thrilled. You know, it's better than driving around in 120-degree heat. So tremendous. Fantastic. Yes, I quite enjoy this. Oh, this is nice. I might have to take a little bit extended drive. Nice day. Just driving around in your classic car with your air conditioning blasted on high. Yep. Oh my goodness, we're almost down to 50. Oh, this is fantastic. Maybe this new parallel flow condenser is the ticket. Well, I would say this system is working. Yep, check that out. Fantastic. Well, we did it. If you're doing this, hopefully you won't struggle with parts as much as I did. Between the compressor and the different lines and everything. 78 and 79 on these El Caminos are kind of different years. Once I went to the R4 compressors, they're a lot more standardized with other GM vehicles, but these are kind of unique for the first 2 years of the G body, which is actually an A body, but it's called a G body because, well, you know, anyway. Story for another time. If you watched this far, thanks for sticking with us. As always, I do appreciate it. Hopefully this was helpful to someone. If you're planning on tackling this yourself, maybe you see some sticking points or maybe see some things that will help you out, and feel free to like, subscribe, tell me what I did wrong down below, and as always, thanks for watching.